Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Chloe Feng. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Police say an officer who opened fire in Peng Chau last night felt his life was at risk. Hopes are fading for 8 crew members missing after a Hong Kong-registered ship sank between Japan and South Korea. And Michelle Yeoh is nominated for a Best Actress Oscar. Police said an officer felt his life was in danger when he opened fire 3 times at a man who confronted him on Peng Chau Island last night. The man is in critical condition in hospital, while the officer and a colleague suffered mild injuries, Janice Low reports.
At a news briefing this afternoon, Acting Marine Superintendent HKIBC defended the officer who opened fire on Peng Chau Island last night.
警告無效之下，向呢位男子開咗3槍。
After repeated but futile warnings, the officer fired 3 shots at the suspect when he felt his life was threatened, HKIBC told reporters. Police said 2 officers went to a flat on Wing Ngon Street at 8 p.m. in response to a noise complaint. They returned at 10:40 p.m. after receiving another complaint. A man reportedly grabbed one officer by the neck and pushed him down the stairs. The man chased the officer before they got into a scuffle. 3 shots were fired, and the man was injured in the waist and arm. HKIBC described the 43-year-old suspect as a 1.8-meter tall Filipino with a Hong Kong identity card. The injured man was airlifted to Eastern Hospital. Another Filipino national in the flat was arrested for allegedly assaulting and obstructing police. The officer who opened fire and a colleague had minor injuries. Police later returned to the scene to search for bullet marks. A resident said it was rare to have a shooting incident on the outlying island. Another resident, Maricel, who lives in the same flat as the man who was shot, spoke to an HKIBC reporter from behind the door.
Stress and need rest.
How stressed are you?
We are not sleeping that day, okay?
This boy said he heard 3 bangs before going to bed last night.
喺臨瞓之前，我就聽到3聲砰砰砰好響咁樣。
He thought they were firecrackers until he realized they were gunshots when someone yelled in pain. The case is being investigated by the crime unit at the Marine Regional Headquarters. Janice Low, HKIBC.
8 people remain missing in the sea between South Korea and Japan after a Hong Kong-flagged cargo ship capsized. 14 other crew members were rescued, but some were unconscious. South Korean and Japanese Coast Guard vessels swung into action after receiving a distress call late last night. The appeal for help came from the 6,650-ton Hong Kong-registered Jin Tian. There were 22 crew members, 14 Chinese nationals and 8 from Myanmar. The ship left Malaysia with a cargo of timber last month and had been due to arrive at its South Korean destination today. The Jin Tian ran into trouble about 110 kilometers west of the remote, uninhabited Danzo Islands of southwestern Japan, which has been hit by winter storms. The last call from the captain came early this morning when he said he and his crew were abandoning ship. But by the time rescuers arrived at around 2 a.m., the vessel had sunk in an area between the Japanese city of Nagasaki and South Korea's Jeju Island. Life jackets and life rafts were found. The cause of the sinking is not known, but it happened when the seas were rough. Hong Kongers have been heading to Japan, although the country is facing a once-in-a-decade blizzard. The mercury plunged below freezing point, but this has not deterred those eager for a snow holiday. Janice Low reports.
Hong Kongers heading to Japan were ready to brave the severe cold weather and snowfall. This woman, whose family will stay in Osaka for 8 days, said there's nothing they can do about the weather. If we get stuck indoors, the worst is to stay in the hotel or let the children play with snow, as they have never seen snow before, she said. This girl shrugged off reports of the severe weather. Why should I be worried? She asked, adding that she has gloves and cardigans to keep warm. Japan is facing a once-in-a-decade blizzard, with the meteorological agency warning that temperatures will fall below freezing point. Snowstorms, rough seas, and icy roads are also predicted. Temperatures this morning plunged to minus 12.8 degrees in Sapporo and minus 2.9 degrees in Tokyo, causing disruptions to rail services. Air travel was also affected, stranding thousands of people, with Narita International Airport in the Greater Tokyo area canceling over 200 flights. This family was among the lucky ones, returning from Osaka before Hong Kong's 5-day Lunar New Year holiday ends tomorrow. This man said their flight was delayed because of snow, but he was not worried about getting stuck in Osaka. Janice Low, HKIBC.
Hong Kong gourmet and food critic William Mark has died at the age of 87. Mark was once a financial news reporter. He was also a columnist at the Xingdao Daily and a food writer. During the 1980s, Mark appeared on local TV shows to introduce international cuisine. He passed away yesterday after staying home in recent years because of chronic illness. Overseas, Russia has condemned Western plans to send tanks to Ukraine, with Moscow branding the move as another blatant provocation. The United States is expected to provide about 30 Abrams tanks. It previously resisted Ukrainian demands for the high-tech weaponry, saying they need intense maintenance. Germany has also reversed course and is expected to supply at least 14 Leopard tanks. Ukraine has been pressing its allies for heavy weapons, saying they are necessary to push back Russian forces. And in Ukraine, several senior officials have resigned or have been sacked as the country launched a crackdown on corruption.
It's positive because people always say that corruption is number one issue which needs to be solved in Ukraine. So people care about this, and people are ready to care this as long as it needed, and as long as we will finally decrease the level of corruption to the level when people would not start saying that this is a really huge problem.
The first to step down was Kyrylo Tymoshenko, the right-hand man of President Volodymyr Zelensky. Journalists accused Tymoshenko of enjoying a lavish lifestyle at a time when most Ukrainians are suffering because of the war with Russia. Zelensky vowed to stamp out corruption in an attempt to improve its chances of joining the European Union. Michelle Yeoh, who shot to fame via Hong Kong action films, has been nominated for an Oscar Best Actress award. The Malaysian-born star was one of 11 nominees from the surreal sci-fi film Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Yeoh, who played the main character, is the first woman of Chinese descent to gain an Oscar nomination for Best Actress. Her rivals for the award, which will be announced in March, include double Oscar winner Cate Blanchett. Locals and tourists across China are enjoying various activities during the week-long holiday to mark the Lunar New Year. Traditional skills were on display as the country celebrated its most important festival. Tourists in Beijing visited temple fairs for a taste of local culture. This visitor, who's had tanghulu or local candied fruit, said the capital has a special festive touch. While some achieved their bucket list goal of skiing on Shichahai Lake, many popped into the National Science and Technology Museum for a special exhibition. In the south, Suzhou City presented performances on land and water. There were also shadow plays with performers behind a white curtain, controlling puppets and swaying to the accompaniment of folk songs. This tourist brought her children to share the experience of the older generation. She said the displays brought back her childhood memories. Night shows were also a must. Jinan City in eastern Shandong delighted tourists with an ocean of lanterns. While Zhuhai in Guangdong launched fireworks to light up the sky. Ningbo City put on a spectacular show called Da Te Hua, or Iron Splash. Molten iron from a sizzling 1,600 degrees Celsius furnace is hurled against a cold surface, producing sparks that glow like fireworks. Neighboring Macau entertained residents and tourists with firecrackers, floats, and parades. And in faraway Xinjiang, over 50 herdsmen from Urumqi celebrated the Lunar New Year by racing their strongest horses on a 2-kilometer snow-covered course. But the snow also stranded visitors who went hiking on the Yellow Mountain in Anhui. Some were stuck for over 5 hours in temperatures below 15 degrees. Over 34,000 tourists visited the mountain yesterday, the highest number since 2018.
On to the weather now. It will be cloudy with a few rain patches. The cold spell will continue with temperatures ranging between 12 and 16 degrees. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Wednesday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Chloe Feng. Thanks for watching. Good night.